this, I would have no idea what to do in this spot. Surely it's
What
not
for
a
the
range bet.
I don't think you necessarily want to range bet unless, I mean, some people might go like 10% pot. Might be a little bit exploitable. Um, but yeah, you're definitely sizing down. Wouldn't recommend range betting it unless you have some sort of exploitative reason to do so.
What kind of frequency do you think we would bet if we were going to bet like a quarter pot here?
I don't necessarily have something like the frequency memorized, but
But
maybe you're
just like
betting like
what's your guess? All I'm saying. Really.
with ace jack of diamonds specifically.
No, with range.
I mean, it would be hard for me to say. I mean, maybe like you're betting 50-60% of the time.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit less than that if it's a full quarter pot, because queen 8-4 could be somewhat next a little bit more with Davy there.
And how do you feel about the ace jack exactly here? Like blocking some top pair, I guess, but not really amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you expecting to see a check out of Linus or a c-bet, or
No,
either one wouldn't
he's gonna
surprise you?
no. Minus C bets a lot.
Okay. And he does go for your more close to 10% type of sizing. What is it, 12% pot?
Yeah, yeah. So how people might try to manage this is like, okay, you could quarter pot it. It's very unclear. Like you're not gonna have studied queen 8-4 monotone under the gun versus middle position. So you might just kind of bail out and just range bet for 10% pot or something and feel like that's going to be pretty reasonable. Um, Linus C bets a lot. I don't think that's like a crazy thing to say. So I'm not surprised that he would go for the down bet.
What's like the weakest hand Davey might have to continue against this tiny c-bet? Like
Yeah,
if
that's
he,
the tricky thing about defending against these like 10% pot size C bets, even on monotone, is a lot of the time you have like a 0 to 10% fold percentage. So I wouldn't be stunned if a solver is supposed to call like some amount of ace jack suited for some reason. It's really hard to say. You can't really think too logically about it, where it's just if he's betting so small, you're almost calling, hoping to pick up the pot on the turn at some frequency. Or it's thinking like, okay, ace jack can beat king jack suited or something, but you're calling pretty wide in a lot of these tiny bet monotone spots.
and what kind of raise sizing would we expect Davey to use here on the flop? The SPR being like
Yeah,
slightly
I
over
mean,
2.
usually people go pretty small. Like some people control you with a min raise or 25% pot, but usually on monotone, people tend to go pretty small.
Yeah. Anyway, it doesn't happen this time, I guess. Davey calls. Linus turns a jack. What are you thinking now?
Well, I mean, you'd be primarily checking, especially it does seem like it's going to improve AV when he's going to have nines, tens, jacks, more queen jack suited probably than Linus would. So he's going to pick up a lot of pair plus gutters. So probably a lot more checking from Linus.
I think he actually barrels, yeah. Small barrel here. I guess when he forces his opponent to continue super wide on the flop, he might be thinking, lots of those hands are still in a tough spot and behind ace jack. Well, what might he be
Yeah,
thinking for this barrel?
well, Linus has just the way he plays the game is that he's just more aggressive, basically in any situation. So he's kind of going to be putting people to the test all the time and merge betting in a spot like this. I mean, it's only 25% pot, so it's not that big of a polarization. And I guess he's going to get value from nines and tens or jack ten suited. I don't know what he's thinking specifically, but he's should just be, rolling for it and just merge betting at some frequency.
All right. Davy calls. River is a 3. And do you expect him to do something similar on the river now? Like, and just fire another like 20% kind of lock bet, pot stun kind of bet? Or do you think he'll go more
No,
polar on the river? Or
I think if he's gonna go for a thin value bet, he probably would do it with a queen. So this seems more like he's gonna go for 2 streets of thin value and then check, and then decide if he's gonna bluff catch.
all right, let's have a look. Does check, nice. And Davy shoves. So how does this hand shape up in your opinion for a river call compared to some other hands that he might be able to have here?
I mean, he's definitely gonna have to call it at some frequency. He's gonna have a decent amount of give ups. I guess it just seems like of the hands that he's going to be checking, it seems kind of middling because if he had a good hand, he'd probably be barreling off a lot of the time. So basically, when you bet in these 3-bet, 4-bet pots and you check, you just wind up folding a ton versus a jam. So his optimal folding range could be like 70% of the time or something, 75% of the time versus a jam here because he just has a ton of stuff like ace 10 suited or ace king, and just gave up. So if you actually have a pair like this that could call, you need to call it usually, at least at some frequency. And I guess that's kind of up for Linus to guess or him to use intuition on what Davy might turn into a bluff. Like certain hands would be obvious, like if he has ace king with a spade, he's always going to be bluffing that. Other things might not be as clear, like whether or not, let's say from Davy's perspective, if he wants to turn, I don't even know, nines with a spade or something into a bluff or something like that, could be kind of high up. But you might consider that. Might prefer like a low pocket pair or something. I don't know.
And what's the thinnest Davy goes for value? Do you think king queen or queen 10?
Potentially. So the thing is, like, if we're, following what I said of Linus bets a lot on the flop and turn, naturally he's going to get to the river with a range that's a bit wider than maybe like a solver would. And so depending on how far down the rabbit hole you want to go with this game, you could try to jam for thinner value than you would against PO solver or something. Like, I'd say strong top pair in these spots is usually kind of like the threshold, and I think the three of hearts in the river blanking makes something like king queen a bit of a better hand in general, especially versus Linus.
So Linus is going to call. Who do you think's going to win the showdown?
I guess I'd have to say Davy is more likely to win.
Playing the odds. Let's see if you're right. Out of interest, how much 6-7 suited do you play in these positions? And like, would you free bet it more than you call it? Would you ever call it? I don't know how pre-flop hold'em works in this no ante
And
games.
yeah, people have different strategies where some people might not play any calling range from the cutoff and just play three bet or fold.
Do you
And for the
think
suited
that's a
connectors,
mistake out of interest in this no ante? Do you think you're losing EV, significant EV by doing that, or do you
um,
think it's kind of whatever?
I would say on the button, you definitely need to play a calling range, but from the cutoff and middle position, it's not as relevant. And whatever EV you'd lose, like, it's very hard to balance a calling and three bet range and then having to play differently post flop. So basically, it's an acceptable simplification to just three bet or fold from the cutoff.
Okay. And 6-7 suited would it three bet like just a very small amount, or is it
Yeah, like the
reasonably
suited
predominant?
connectors are kind of in there at some kind of low mixed frequencies,
Okay.
along with like small to medium pocket pairs can be in there, like sixes or whatever.